Welcome to the Seeking Tranquility podcast. I'm John, and I'll be reading the essay, The 13 Desserts of Christmas. On Christmas Day this year, 2024, we'll mark our third Christmas as residents of Nice, France, a city that lies within the political region of Provence-Alpes-Côtes, and in historical terms, the geographical region of Provence. It will be our sixth Christmas celebration here, since my family visited twice while living in Dublin to pass the end-of-year holidays. However, this will be the first year we observe the Provencal tradition of the Treize Desserts, or the 13 Desserts of Christmas. I admit the concept of celebrating Christmas with a plethora of desserts has a certain hedonistic appeal. As a Christmas tradition, however, the celebration is shaped by symbolism and intertwined to some extent with religious ritual. The desserts are intended to follow le gros souper, or Big Supper, generous but not extravagant, which precedes Midnight Mass on December 24th, though attendance at Mass these days is probably exceptional. The table is to be laid with 3 white cloths and 3 candles, symbolic of the Holy Trinity, and an extra place at the table should be made should someone less fortunate and in need of food happen to pass by. The desserts are laid out thereafter for diners to sample, traditionally upon returning from midnight Mass, and remain on the table for the following 3 days. As you can see, the symbolism of the tradition of the Treize Desserts is distinctly religious. The number 13 represents the 12 apostles and Jesus, that is, the attendees at the Last Supper. The desserts do not, however, correspond precisely to each of those individuals present at the Last Supper. 4 of the apostles are, in effect, replaced symbolically by the 4 Catholic mendicant orders, that is, the religious orders whose existence depends on the generosity of Christian donors. The desserts are called les pâtissoires in the Provençal language, les quatre mendiants in French, or the 4 beggars in English, representing the Carmelites, Franciscans, Dominicans, and Augustinians. Each order has some association with the dessert, such as nuts, dried figs, almonds, raisins, and dates, where the color of the fruit is seen as corresponding to the colors of the order's everyday vestments. The other desserts are more variable, but generally include nougat and a particular kind of cake. The nougat is of 2 kinds, seen as representing good and evil, a hard black nougat with honey and almonds, nougat noir au miel, and the more familiar white nougat, or nougat blanc, made with sugar, eggs, pistachios, honey, and almonds. The cake is commonly a pompe à huile. No, it's not an oil pump. Rather, it is a first cousin of a traditional Provençal fougasse, having a characteristic shape and made with water, flour, sugar, yeast, orange flower water, olive oil, and oranges. It is a strictly seasonal food. In some parts of Provence, the cake might instead be a gébassier, another cousin of the fougasse, seasoned with anise and, unlike the pompe à huile, produced year-round. Either way, when serving one must never use a knife to cut it. The belief is, to avoid misfortune in the new year, it must be broken by hand, as Christ broke bread at the Last Supper. The cake can be dipped in the vin cuit, which in earlier times would have been an essential accompaniment to the Treize Desserts, having a spiritual association with the blood of Christ. The cake, be it a pompe à huile or gébassier, also connects to another Provençal tradition, the painted clay figures called santons that populate the many elaborate crèche displays found throughout the region at Christmas time. In particular, the cake is usually carried to the birthplace of Jesus by a character called pistachier, a common farmhand of questionable character who, in scenes of the crèche, brings the newborn gifts of fish, sausage, and a fougasse, gébassier, or pompe à huile. Apart from the more or less essential components of the Treize Desserts already described, there can be great variety based on location and terroir, family tradition, or simply personal taste and whimsy. In Aix-en-Provence, for example, one might consider it essential to include the signature confection of that city, the calisson, a tender, cookie-like sweet made with marzipan and melon conserve, or biscotin, a confection comprised of a roasted hazelnut coated with a thin layer of pastry seasoned with orange blossom water. As we have inherited no direct regional or family tradition, this year we have extraordinary freedom in assembling our Treize Desserts de Noël, potentially establishing a precedent for future Christmas Eve dinners. Since we are in Nice, local specialties are inevitable. The ubiquitous oreillette or bugne will be there, anticipating the carnival season. Possibly also a delicious tourte de blette, a pastry made with chard, pine nuts and raisins, dusted with confectioner's sugar, and so many other things to choose from. Confit and dried fruits of all kinds, cumin and fennel seed cookies, pain d'épices or spice cake, pâte de coin or quince paste, all manner of winter fruits, particularly apples and pears, marron glacé or glazed chestnut. As newcomers, we might dare to introduce some chocolate delights from one of the excellent chocolatiers in the city, or even a bûche de Noël, which could amount to mixing traditions from one place and time with another. There's also the option of purchasing a pre-assembled Treize Desserts tins. So many choices. As for the gros souper, I think we'll fall back on more familiar customs. A staple in past years has been roast beef with Yorkshire pudding, glazed shallots, carrot and parsnip puree, and rich dark gravy. Last year it was roast pork, slow-cooked with dry apple cider from Normandy, and a sauce seasoned with herbs and honey from Monastère Cabrespine in Aveyron. So good, we spoke about it for days afterward. One year, when we were still living in Dublin, we reasoned that Christmas celebrated an event that took place in the Orient, and dared prepare a more exotic repast. A splendid lamb tagine, sprinkled with parsley and festive pomegranate seeds, and a beautiful pastilla. The food was lovely, and I still like the concept. No matter the dinner choice, I'm already looking forward to participating in the tradition of les Treize Desserts. Thanks for listening.